Ballville was a little community that was settled by members of the Ball family. And it was really just a little area in this part of Talbot County that it was settled, you know, in the 1820s and 30s, late 1820s and early 1830s, like the rest of the county. But the Ball family were contributors to building a school and a church and different things here. And the community really suffered when the tornado of 1875 came through and blew most everything away. And about 10 years or 12 years after that, the railroad came through Harris County, and a lot of the families that lived here moved over there to what's now Waverly Hall. So a lot of these places were abandoned out here after that, especially the Ball family cemetery and a cemetery called Mount Vernon, which is near here. It was an old church that was abandoned some years ago. But this has always been just a family cemetery. I don't think there was ever a church or anything here. I think this was just part of one of the families that was buried here. This was part of their farm.
And is this pretty much all that's left of Ballville?
Pretty much, yes. Yeah. You want to stand over here with us? You're on the trip too.
Yeah, you might as well. All new cap.
That's my Lincoln, I guess so.
Yeah, you provided the card, and you got to include that.
That's right. Hey everybody, it's Robert coming to you with another adventure into history. I'm out here with Dan, and we are at the old Willis family cemetery. We're also out here with Joy, who was on a previous video, and Mr. David Hogg. So, you want to tell us where we're at?
Yeah, Willis Cemetery in Talbot County, just outside of Talboton. I first visited the cemetery. The only time I've ever been here was in the 1980s, the late 1980s. Frank Lucas brought me out here. Frank's a distant cousin. Frank's great-grandfather, Willis-Hogg, is buried out here. My brother, Euclidus's brother was my great-great-granddaddy. His name was Samuel Hogg. They came from Newberry County, South Carolina, and settled here in Talbot County. And Samuel, to my knowledge, is not buried here. I don't know where he's buried, but probably not too far from here on his farm, from what I understand from family notes and records.
Of course, it's called the Willis Family Cemetery, but there are lots of other families buried in here. I think they're all connected one way or another with each other. But over the years, this turned into a community cemetery for the community of Ballville, which was here long ago. And you've got family members of the Lucases and the Kidd family, the Hogg family, the Willises. There's just lots of family connections in this place, and lots of descendants that live here and scattered all over the country. The cemetery is kept. Most of the family lives, locally, but they try to keep it cleaned off about twice a year. And it's time now that one of the descendants told me this morning that they've actually scheduled it to be cleaned up sometime this week. So I thought it'd be interesting to come here and let Mr. Hogg take us on a tour of it.
It's like a lot of Confederate graves.
They are. We were just discussing that were it not for the benefit of having a Confederate veteran headstone, these graves here would not even be marked.
That's right.
You see, you hear me talk about Mr. Frank Lucas a good bit. This is his grandfather, Marshall Lucas. And there is a picture of Marshall Lucas in his Confederate uniform. Wow. In the Rockaway and Talbot books. And Mr. Frank gave me the contents of a little building to clean out one time. And the little building had been originally the kitchen to the Marshall Lucas home place. And in cleaning out that little kitchen building, I was sweeping up trash in there, and there was a glass plate negative from an old ambrotype photograph. And I didn't tell Mr. Frank I found it. I took it straight to Columbus, and the only place that could develop a thing like that back in those days was Curvin's department store had a photography department. And I carried that glass plate negative in there, and the photographer there said, yes, I can develop that. And he developed it. I had it framed, and I presented it to Mr. Frank. And Mr. Frank loaned it to William Davison when he wrote the Rockaway and Talbot book. But It is the image of Marshall Lucas, who is buried here. Mr. Frank had tears in his eyes when I gave him that picture, and I remember how proud he was of it, because he had never seen a picture of his grandfather in a Confederate uniform, and it was really something. But his wife is buried next to him, and as you see, her grave is not marked. And then Marshall Lucas, I think his parents are buried here. Her parents are buried over there somewhere maybe. But Mr. Lucas's mother, let's see, one of his grandmothers was, maiden name was Hogg, H-O-G-G, related to Mr. David Hogg that just came with us out here. But I don't know where. I think they're buried back in this area.
Well, to me, the starting point for me is Willis-Hogg's grave over here. And Willis was born in 1809 in Newberry County, and he came down here, and Elizabeth Willis, his wife, was his third wife. He lost two other wives, you know, to early deaths along the way. And so Frank Lucas was a descendant of Euclides, and I met him through family reunions that I would go to as a young man in my 20s, and that's when I started coming to Talbot County to do research, and he brought me here to the cemetery. But his wife and he late in life moved to nearby Marion County, just adjacent to here, and their children had spread out into the surrounding counties, so they went to live with or near some of their children in Marion County, and when they died, they brought them back here and buried them.
And so this is Elizabeth Hogg, born December 8th, 1818, and died April 17th, 18... Looks like, I think that's a... I don't know.
1890 something.
Yeah, 1890 something. Said, "Blessed are they that die in the Lord."
You mind highlighting her name again?
Yeah.
And the date of her birth. Thanks.
You're welcome. And so these are children of theirs?
This is his son or grandson. This is the infant child of Z.T., Zachary Taylor Hogg, and Fanny, his wife, Fanny, I forget what her last name was. So this would be Willis-Hogg's grandchild,
Gotcha.
grandson.
Born July 11th and died December 25th, 1881. Then, same thing over here. It's a Clyde infant. Born March 17th, 1884, and died July 21st, 1885. Budded on earth to bloom in heaven. Interesting that I guess his name was Clyde. Clyde.
Yeah, that's what they called Euclides.
Gotcha. Okay.
Euclides was named after his grandfather, who was a Quaker, Euclides Longshore. And Euclides was from Bucks County, Pennsylvania, migrated to South Carolina, wound up settling in Newberry County, and that's where Euclides' daughter, Elizabeth, married James Hogg. James was the father of Euclides and my ancestor Samuel and Lewis, Sally, and Polly.
Gotcha.
And so we know that at least Samuel, Euclides, Lewis, and Sarah migrated into Georgia. Polly, I'm not sure about. We think she may have, been in Talbot County. Both Polly and Sarah married men named West. And I don't know for sure about who Polly married, but James West married Sarah Hogg.
Do you have more people out here?
Well, this is the first time I've been here since the late 1980s.
Oh, wow.
There are, I'm sure, others out here. I would have to look through here. Okay, Andrew Hogg here, who was in Company K of the 27th Georgia Infantry. This was one of Euclidus's sons.
Put the light on this one.
George Hogg, another one of his sons.
There we go. George Hogg, also Company K, 27th Georgia Infantry. Has it changed much since the last time you were out here?
Well, Elizabeth's headstone has broken, and it's been broken a long time. I see a marker over there that's tipped over. There are some bushes that have grown up that weren't here before. And this old pioneer grave, that rocked up grave, was bigger, considerably bigger back then. It has shrunk down.
Gotcha.
I noticed there's a indention over next to it.
Sure
where
enough.
It appears to be a grave. There may have been a larger rock-up grave and a smaller one in my memory. I took some pictures back then, but I don't know.
Look at this one that's leaning over here. As we kind of pointed out at the beginning, there's a lot of graves that are only marked with field stones, all scattered out here. And I guess that's another one right there. This is Josie Willis, born July 12th, 1825, and died March 20th, 1901. There's a footstone right here that's Josie Willis's footstone. And so this cemetery is actually still in use up to, are they still burying in here?
According to Dan, they are.
Yeah, okay. So these are the more modern graves, I'm assuming. And the dates on there, 2000, 1982, 1941, interesting. And there's Robert H. Lee Willis. Was born December 21st, 1867, and died November 7th, 1954. And Narcissa Baldwin Willis, born August 15th, 1868, and died October 30th, 1925. Oh, I didn't even see that one right there. This is J.H. Willis, born April 21st, 1823, and died January 30th, 1903. I'm going to look at the one that's got this tree growing over it. That one I'm going to have to kind of get down to. Let's see here. Get the flashlight to work, come on. Alright, this is the daughter of J.L. and M.A. Willis. It just says March 13th, 1878. Crawl back up. I guess that tree was intentionally planted on her grave there. Got a broken marker here. This is Martha Ann Green, born August 7th, 1825, and died November 16th, 1911. Epitaph reads, "Asleep in Jesus, blessed sleep, from which none ever wake to weep." And I guess this is her headstone. Yep, headstone. Martha Ann, wife of
Looks like maybe John Green.
John Green. And then birth date, death date should be the same. These have been knocked over. This one's in a fire ant bed. This infant son of, do this quick before these ants find out who destroyed their home. Son of Mr. and Mrs. J.T. Green. Put that back. Same thing here. Infant son of Mr. and Mrs. J.T. Green. Same thing here. Infant son of Mr. and Mrs. J.T. Green. Wow. Another Confederate marker here. This is Corporal James P. Dent, Company K, 27th Georgia Infantry, Confederate States of America. It's Joseph Isaac Lucas, Company.
That was his other grandfather, Lucas. He had two grandfather Lucases.
Oh, really?
Mr. Frank's mother, I believe, was a Lucas, and she married her first cousin.
Oh, really? Gotcha. Company C, 3rd Georgia Cavalry, Confederate States Army.
Actually, in Clyde's first wife, I believe, was his first cousin. Married up in North Newberry County to a Marbot, a German name.
Robert, I don't know where it is, but I got a picture of this man right here with his Model T Ford.
Oh, really?
I don't know where it is, though.
Curtis Lucas. Born December 17th, 1879. Died September 27th, 1953. I believe that says Sleep in Jesus. Yep. Sleep in Jesus.
Telling the kid's story.
Yeah, the family buried right here is Mr. Noel Lucas and his wife Frances, and their son Doug, right over there. This is Noel here. But anyway, Miss Frances and Mr. Noel, my family knew them real well. I especially knew Miss Frances. She died in 2010. So, and as you see, her son Doug died in 2015. So the cemetery is still being used by that family, of course, as well as the Willis family. But the Kidd family is buried right over here, and the Kidds operated a general store. Miss Addie Mae Kidd was Miss Frances's sister, and everybody called Miss Addie Mae Miss Ib. And she never married, and she ran an old general store that had belonged to the Lucases originally. And she ran that store up until a couple of years before she passed away. But that store was really something. It was a real country store out in the middle of nowhere. And she had a little gas pump, and she had, you know, Coca-Cola, well, drink box with Cokes and Royal Crown Colas and things. But in the back of that store, she had a big framed portrait of her great-grandfather, Julius Kidd, who was a Confederate veteran, or you know, he was in his full soldier uniform. And she told me that he was buried here, but I don't see his grave. Surely he was entitled to a Confederate headstone also, but I don't see one for him. But anyway, the Kidds are buried right over there. I've got a picture of Miss Addie Mae standing in her store. Standing on the steps of the store.
This is Alfred E. Kidd, born February 8th, 1920, and died December 6th, 1979.
Yep.
Let's see, is that Daisy? Daisy A. Kidd? What is that, Dan?
I believe that, I think it's 1894. I remember her, and she was Miss Frances Lucas's mother. And I remember seeing a very, very old photograph of Mount Ida School, which was a school near here. And she was in that picture. Her daughter showed that to me one time, and I believe the family still has that old photograph. But this right here, this grave is Miss Addie Mae Kidd. And it looks like it's been here forever, but Miss Addie Mae died in the year 2000.
Oh, wow.
She was born in 1915 and died in 2000. She was the same age as one of my mother's sisters, Lucille, I believe. They went to school together in Talbot. And my mother's sister was talking and got into, the teacher blamed Miss Addie Mae for it, and got all over Miss Addie Mae and made her stay in while everybody else went out to play, and she never got over it, and she always reminded me of it. Every time she saw me, she says, "Your aunt Lucille got me in trouble one time." Now, obviously this is the incorrect date. D.A. Kidd born, I assume that meant 1856 because he died in 1871, or maybe
Maybe they got it backwards where it's the death date first and the birth date next.
maybe so. I don't know. At any rate, he died before I came along, so I don't remember him. There's an unmarked grave here next to Mr. Kidd.
I see
So-
it, yeah.
Julius Kidd would have been his father. If that's Miss Addie Mae's daddy. If that's Miss Daisy's husband, then his father is probably buried somewhere right here next to him. There is an unmarked grave right there.
And there's a footstone for it.
Yeah. Beautiful old tree.
And so we've seen a few of these that are facing the
This looks like it's
Wrong direction.
1809 it died. Oh gosh, your flashlight's amazing.
this is
April 18. So this just looks like a child, but that's not a child.
no
78-year-old lady. Jason.
J.A. Robertson, born 1809, died April 8th, 1880, age 98.
Gracious.
I would love that flashlight. Those grapes.
So I've seen a few times where we'll have graves that face the wrong way, and the markers, and it's usually pretty early graves that and that's later to be facing the wrong way, as you would say. But I've heard different theories as to why. Like one reason, so you don't walk on the grave to read it. You'd walk behind it, but I don't know. Yeah, I was gonna say, let's see if there's anything. This is M.A. Robertson, born 1810, died December 5th, 1896. And it probably just says age, but we'll. That's a hard tell. I gave the other Robert my brush, so gotta use my hand. Did you bring a brush, Dan?
No, I did not bring a brush or a broom, Robert.
Yep, age 86. M.A. Robertson. Cool headstone. That's true. So these were hand chiseled in here, because that's stone, yeah. And I mean, you can see it's kind of crudely, I would say, not, you know, being insulting, but kind of crudely chiseled in, it looks like, in some places, but other, I mean, like that's a fine D. It almost looks stamped in, but then that looks handwritten. Is this?
I believe it's all hand inscribed.
Yeah. It's not concrete, is it? It's,
It's a little thin piece of marble.
yeah, it's just hand chiseled in there. That's cool.